Welcome to the Insights to Communicate podcast with Adam Probalski, where communications, research, and strategy come together.
Okay, welcome to the podcast. Nick Schuler, Chief at CAL FIRE, and Deputy Director at CAL FIRE, Scott Gregory. Both of you, thanks for joining.
Thank you for having us, Adam.
Thank you.
So it's kind of a first for us, having two guests at once. So we're going to try to split this up a little bit, but I feel honored because I know this is a moment in time where you've got a lot going on. I live in California too, and I know that there's a basic constant threat when there's dry brush out there and it's hot weather. So I think we had to delay this conversation a little bit. Can you share, what might have made that delay important today?
Absolutely. When we look at California, we live in a Mediterranean climate. We're expecting weather conditions in excess of triple digits, 100 plus degree weather throughout the state. We're seeing red flag warnings across the state, and we're seeing a 1,600% increase in acres burned here in California. And so a lot of people ask, well, what does that mean? Well, that means that we live in a very fire-prone community. No matter whether you live in the city or the backcountry, wildfire is a problem throughout the state.
So were you dealing with any kind of a crisis today, or it was just kind of routine sort of things?
Yeah, most of what we dealt with this morning is routine things. We're constantly forecasting ahead. We're looking at how we can be prepared not only in the days to come, but the weeks to come. And not only having the appropriate staffing, the resources strategically located across the state, but also working with our local, state, federal, and tribal partners to make sure that when disaster strikes, resources from all agencies are available.
Got it. So to be clear, Chief, you are kind of in a, I guess for lack of a better way of saying it, a PIO role, a public information role for the most part. Is that a good way of describing your role with CAL FIRE?
Yeah, I oversee the state's communications program. So everything from video production to social media to our interaction with the media, our education to schools in a variety of topics. But we work very closely with our technology program and really looking at how we can leverage technology to ensure that we're communicating not only efficiently, effectively, but authoritatively to our community.
Awesome. And Scott, as Deputy Director, it seems like from what I can see, you're kind of like a CTO and CIO and security master all in one. Like you're everything having to do with a computer or security. Is that a good way of describing it, or maybe give me a better assessment?
Sure. I think it's a fair way to describe a portion of it. So in my role, I direct all activities related to technology for CAL FIRE, and that encompasses a number of different things. Most importantly, our internal IT practice, which kind of keeps the aircraft carrier moving straight and efficiently and securely, as you mentioned. But additionally, I have telecommunications as part of that portfolio, which is everything from a handy-talkie that our folks on the ground are utilizing to supporting all the mobile radio equipment that our folks use to respond. Lastly is, and I think probably one of the most important for the future of CAL FIRE, and a lot of the things that hopefully we'll get into today with Chief Schuler, is our research, development, and our innovation group, which really functions as more of an internal technology consultancy within CAL FIRE to look for moving the needle in terms of where CAL FIRE's technology posture is, bringing in new and novel technologies from private industry for experimentation, testing, and ultimate inclusion into our technology portfolio.
Very cool. I definitely want to ask some individual questions of both of you, but the one that I'm most interested in, Scott, is what's in your go bag? I imagine you've got, a laptop or two. I imagine you've got maybe a sat phone. What's in your go bag? What do you have to have with you at all times?
In my go bag? I've never had that question posed to me. Yeah, the items you mentioned, as well as the most important device that I bring with myself is my cell phone. That's the lifeline. I'm running around quite a bit during the day. Chief Schuler and I collaborate on just about every point in terms of technology to the public and communicating, and that's really how we get things done. Things that, let's say, are virtually within the go bag are the number of of technologies that we utilize, that'd be probably too many to name in one conversation, to be able to make these connections that we'll talk about today, to make these connections between these folks that are providing data to us, how we collate it, how we manage it, and how we then ultimately disseminate it to the public. I think one of the interesting things about technology and CAL FIRE is that you have this massive organization of 14,000 plus individuals that daily functions based on how well technology is functioning, right?
Right.
We kind of think about what were organizations like 30 years ago, how they do it. Well, technology was a piece of it, but now even more so as we become more modernized, technology is really at the heart of how we do things. But then, of course, secondarily, how do we move together as an organization in meeting the needs of the public who have great needs based on some of the consumer products they utilize? They want the answer now. They want it quickly. Government's not always best at delivering information now and quickly, but I believe that in this organization in CAL FIRE, in our partnerships with comms, we've really kind of flipped that equation on its head. We've been getting information near real time. In fact, we've even been getting information, providing it to the public faster than some of our private industry partners have been doing, which I think is a really quite a testament to Nick Schuler's program, as well as technology partnering to make sure that we're meeting the needs of the public that we serve.
You bring up an interesting part of that. You've got this feed of information. I had the privilege of volunteering with my local sheriff's department and serving in a kind of a PIO role for a while. And I remember being in the EOC during a fire, an incident, and there are real power players in that room. There are people who are of substance, people who, you got elected officials, or you've got, higher ups in there, people from federal agencies. And there seems to be no egos when those incidents are happening. How does that happen? In the real world, there's egos flying everywhere. How do you bring that down and make sure you strip that away and just say, we're getting, the job done? What does that look like, Chief Schuler?
Well, I think, in California, we've had the unfortunate or fortunate experience of being well trained, well prepared, and well exercised for natural disasters, and wildfire just being one of them. And I think working in California, we have the ability to work in what we call the master mutual aid system. And what that means is essentially neighbor helping neighbor, fire department helping fire department, and as you mentioned, Adam, law enforcement as well. And so everybody understands their role. They understand the function of when they arrive. We use common communication, common terminology. So everybody has a specific role. And what we've seen throughout California is that there's a significant benefit of everybody working together. And we're very proud of that. And we see that success every single day.
Keeping with you, Chief Schuler, it seems like your career, you started as a firefighter with CAL FIRE and you've worked your way up through that organization, which is fascinating into itself. Just, working for one organization doesn't really happen anymore, I don't think. But the most interesting thing about your rise in CAL FIRE is you made a jump at some point from being a firefighter to being a communicator. Can you share how that happened and any of the uniqueness to that?
Yeah, well, I've spent 26 years working for CAL FIRE, and a majority of that is in an operational position, a firefighter, if you will. And when I was a station captain, I had a very tenured chief officer approach me and encourage me to move in to a position in communications for a short time in my career. And I'll be honest, I really wasn't interested when I was first approached, but I also had to reflect back at what was going to be good for my career. Was I willing to do something that was outside my comfort zone? And I also was a little bit intimidated of what that was going to look like in interacting with the media day in, day out. And all these years later, I can say that it was one of the best moves I ever made. I've had a very strong relationship with our media partners. And I think a lot of that is based upon our transparency. And when I went into not only this job, but previous jobs, my commitment was that if we make a mistake, then we're going to stand up and say we made a mistake and we're going to do better. But we also want to talk about all the things that we do right every single day. And I feel very fortunate that's been something that's served me well.
Awesome. I'd love to hear about your tech stack, what the things that you all use that we probably don't know about. Some predictive technologies or infrared cameras or aerial photography or whatever else it is that I can't even conjure in my head because you've got some amazing tools at your disposal. What all are you using today that maybe you weren't using 10 years ago? And what's kind of on the horizon for y'all?
Yeah, I'll talk about some of the things that we're doing, and then I'll tell you a brief story of how when Scott came into the department, how our strong relationship was built and the success we've seen since then. So, Alert California is a program through UC San Diego, and it's a partnership that we value a lot. And what that basically has done is it's established more than 1,100 cameras throughout the state, and these cameras are essentially spinning 24 hours a day, and they're looking for anomalies, right? And they're looking for things on the horizon that are different from what they had seen previously. And those anomalies are often smoke. And so through the use of artificial intelligence, through the use of these cameras, we are now getting alerts directly to our 911 centers from these cameras, oftentimes before anybody even calls 911.
Wow.
So what does that provide us? That provides us a greater sense of situational awareness, a faster response time, and the ability to not rely solely on humans, but leverage technology. So that's one of the great things that we're taking advantage of today as well.
Does that also include drones?
So we do have a significant UAS program, and we've seen a great success in that as well. And that program continues to expand, both flying day and night with our UAS, not just on wildfires, but the use of search and rescue and a variety of other prescribed fire and prevention opportunities as well. And as we were developing many of these technologies, in 2020, we had probably the most significant fire siege in recent history. And we had a website that had been around for a long time. And then Deputy Director Gregory came in. And one of our first conversations was in the middle of the night when I called him and said, our website's down and there's fires burning everywhere and we have a problem. Essentially, help. And so I think I'll turn it over to Scott to tell that story and where we've been able to develop since then.
Yeah, no, I remember that call vividly. In fact, it was about the third day into my job. I started in 2020 in July.
Wow.
And I get a call from Chief Schuler. I had never met him before, but he says, "Hey, our website's down. What are you going to do to fix it?" in lesser words. So what it required us to do was assess why was it down? Well, it was down because extreme levels of visitorship during that siege. Everybody wanted incident-related information.
Right.
But, as it was managed in the past, it was kind of a check the box, right? Put a website up. You got your department website up. You're good to go. Share some incident information to the public, to the news, to the media. You're fine. But what we didn't realize was how very popular that was. At one point, we were exceeding far beyond the threshold of what the server infrastructure would be able to support. So ended up doing a complete re-architecture of the website, changing the web platform to a more commercial grade platform called Sitecore. Sitecore was then built up to be able to manage the amount of content and information being shared. On top of that, we leveraged and utilized something called a CDN, a content delivery network, which essentially replicates web cached information to be able to support the massive demands and needs that were placed on the website going forward. Thankfully, after making some of those adjustments, it's provided us an excellent foundation to build upon some of the great I think innovations that we placed on that website that I was alluding to previously, of being able to get information out in a very timely fashion to ultimately provide better awareness to the folks that consume it.
And Adam, if I could just touch on that to talk about how we're developing that and how far we've taken that, teaming up with technology. And I think that's really the message I would share, is that it's great to be an effective communicator, but if you're not leveraging the technology within your programs, and within your department, you're drastically missing the mark. And the ability to sit in a room with your tech team and draw on a whiteboard and come up with a solution on a whiteboard, and then them effectively be able to integrate that is something that for me has been very rewarding. You take a look at our page now. We have real time, near real time aircraft flight following. We have integrated AI cameras. We have information that's coming from our information officers throughout the entire state for CAL FIRE immediately being posted on our web to give you some ideas of what that looks like. Just within the past week, we've had more than 500 updates to our incident page from our staff and over 1.1 million viewers from the public. Wow. So we monitor that. We are proactive and aggressive in making sure that people have the information they need, whether it's evacuations, social media, whatever it is. We are there 24 hours a day to make sure that that's working for the public.
Oh, that's fantastic. Is there anything that is uniquely analog, uniquely, got to be done by hand that people be surprised by that you haven't been able to make, automated or computerized?
Well, I'll touch on this, and I'm sure Chief Schuler has a few items he'd want to share. Just as a general principle, when you look at leveraging AI and automation, we have to always be cognizant of having, what's being deemed more and more as AI gets rolled out, the human in the loop.
Right.
We have to always have eyes on, folks that actually do this for a living. Automation's fantastic, but we're always making checks. We have to. Nick, I don't know if there were other items you wanted to share related to that.
No, I think that's a very valid point, right? Like the benefit of technology is immense, but when we're talking about evacuating sometimes hundreds of thousands of people and people relying on our information, we always have to make sure that we have a set of eyes on that to make sure that simple words don't get crossed up. As an example, if we say evacuate east and for some reason it puts evacuate west, people's lives can be in danger. So we're constantly monitoring that. We're in touch. We're engaged with our media partners, but we're also want to provide a one-stop shop for people to come find the latest information, feel like they're getting the information in a timely manner, not being bogged down by bureaucracy. And when they have a question, they get it answered. For us, I pride ourselves on, for our media partners, having a phone number that they can call where they get one of my staff 24 hours a day. And so there is no 8 to 5. There is no business hours. We are available to them 24 hours a day.
I think that's pretty unique for government. I don't think people realize that from a communication perspective, you've got someone there at all times. I asked Chief Schuler, Scott, about a mentor. Well, he kind of mentioned kind of a mentor along the way or someone that kind of gave him a push towards communications. Did you have one or someone or people that kind of mentored you that suggested you should go where you're going or, made a big difference in your background, in your move to CAL FIRE?
Yeah. I don't think that there was one individual in particular, but to come to CAL FIRE, it was just a beautiful opportunity that, I felt meshed very well with my core values and what I want to spend my career doing. Most of my career had been spent in public safety or adjacent to public safety, whether it was in private industry or working for the military. If there was one individual, there was a gentleman when I spent time with the Army Corps of Engineers, Tom Soboleski. Tom was my direct manager. He always had this saying, Scott, I'm going to give you enough rope to hang yourself. And what was nice about that was it allowed me to explore and build my skill sets, work on some very challenging projects, both military and civilian, and really kind of showed me that, I've got some things that I can contribute. I think I came through a very non-traditional route with technology. My undergraduate degree is in geography.
Yeah.
I came up through doing GIS, which, as a geographer, trained originally, learning how to program, learning about databases, learning about spatial analytics, it all really, believe it or not, has tied into where I sit here today. I believe those were the stepping stones that allowed me to get to where I'm at, all the way through coming to the state as a state's geographic information officer, then being appointed by Governor Brown as the chief innovation officer for the state for the first time. You're kind of like building the plane as you're flying it, but they were all risks that led me to where I'm at, and I could see how in looking back, how those were stepping stones to allow me to be seated here speaking with you, and just having this great opportunity to work for such a great organization.
As someone who is a complete nerd for geography, I really appreciate the degree in GIS. And, I just suck up every book I can read and listen to every podcast about geography, because I don't think people really understand the dynamics of all the things that are entailed in geography and education in that field.
Right.
So very, very cool that you got to do that.
Yeah.
All right. So lastly, for each of you, do you have a mantra, a saying, a theme that runs through your head, a piece of advice, that one-liner or so that really drives you or you think about every day?
Oh, I'll start. For me, what I think about every day is how can we serve the public better? And that may sound corny, or it may sound like a clip note, but that is something I think about on basically 7 days a week. I think I talked to Scott over the weekend probably 10 times about work-related items to make sure that we're being efficient. For me, I try to pride myself by saying I treat people like I hope, like I want to be treated. I think you get more out of people giving them lemonade than lemons, and I'm proud to work for the organization I do.
For me, and it's been one I've adopted probably in the last couple of years. A good buddy of mine said, you need to be careful related to emotion versus intelligence, and being able to approach things without being emotional, but step back, assess, understand it, and then go forward. I think in this kind of line of business, emotions can run very high, because things are due. People's lives are in the balance at times. Stepping away from emotions, stepping back, looking at things intelligently, working with your partners, the outcome will be better if you do that. It's hard to remember that, when you're all heated.
Yeah.
But I'll tell you what, it has paid dividends for me. So that's one thing that helps me quite a bit.
I definitely appreciate that. Being in a house of a wife and two daughters, I definitely appreciate the muting of emotions. Well, thank you very much, both of you, for joining. And this is super informative. I think a lot of people will be really interested in listening to all this. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
This has been Insights to Communicate with Adam Probalski, president of the woman and Latina-owned market and opinion research firm, Probalski Research.